Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Debrief on ABC News Live. I'm Kimberly Brooks. Thanks so much for joining us. We have the latest on that terrifying Russian plane crash that left 41 people dead when it erupted in flames. Plus, R. Kelly is in court again today on his sexual abuse allegations. And if you didn't know what camp style was before, you know now. We're taking a look back at the Met Gala pink carpet. But first, here are your headlines.
Democratic presidential candidate Cory Booker proposes new legislation that would require all gun owners to get a federal gun license. Right now, there's no national license program, but 13 states already have some form of licensing rules. Under the new proposal, current gun owners would have a transition period to get certified. This is the New Jersey senator's second policy rollout in 3 weeks.
In a stunning turn of events, we're learning the two Reuters journalists who were jailed for breaking Myanmar's Official Secrets Act have been freed from prison. They had been sentenced to 7 years in jail amid international outcry, the president's office announcing they were among the 6,500 prisoners released, as is customary around the time of the traditional New Year.
Voters in Denver are set to decide whether they want to decriminalize magic mushrooms.
A citizen-led initiative appears on ballots today, letting residents of Denver decide whether to decriminalize psilocybin, the psychedelic substance behind so-called magic mushrooms. The federal government has outlawed the substance since 1968 and has classified it as a Schedule I drug. The initiative would decriminalize use or possession of psilocybin by people 21 and older. It does not legalize it or allow it to be sold legally.
Denver's mayor and the DA are against it. And the Kentucky Horse Racing Commission has tossed out the appeal by the owners of the horse disqualified from the Kentucky Derby. Maximum Security, who crossed the line first, was eliminated for interference.
All right, we begin in Moscow with updates on that fatal plane crash that left 41 people dead after it erupted in flames in an emergency landing. A Russian newspaper is now reporting that investigators are focusing on a major pilot error. So I want to go to Dan Harris, who's in Moscow with more. Dan?
According to a well-respected local newspaper here in Moscow, investigators are honing in on pilot error as the likely source of this fiery and fatal crash. This morning, as we see new images of Russian investigators working inside the charred husk of the plane, as well as these images from inside the cabin with passengers screaming as they see the rising flames, investigators are now reportedly keying in on the pilot of that ill-fated Aeroflot jet. The first potential mistake, the flight carrying 78 passengers and crew took off from Sheremetyevo Airport en route to Murmansk and flew into storm clouds. It was in the air for 28 minutes, during which time it was reportedly hit by lightning. Lightning strikes are not unusual, but according to a local newspaper called Kommersant, investigators are looking at whether the pilot then made another error by hurrying to make an emergency landing instead of burning off the extra fuel. And that is when things went horribly wrong. You can see the plane landing too fast and too hard, appearing to bounce 3 times. After that, an explosion. Flames and black smoke trailing as the plane careens down the runway.
What we saw was a botched landing, a landing that went awry and hit so hard that it broke the airplane up and caused that horrific fire.
Making matters worse, investigators are also reportedly looking into whether the emergency response was too slow. It appears the alarm may have been raised too late. There are, however, this morning stories of heroism, including this 22-year-old flight attendant who died reportedly while trying to get the plane's rear door to open. In all, 41 dead, including 1 child and 1 American, Jeremy Brooks from Santa Fe, New Mexico, who had just graduated from college and was taking a job as a fishing guide in Russia.
I think it was more of a state of shock for all of us. To us, Jeremy was invincible. Everyone loved Jeremy, and Jeremy in turn loved everyone else.
Back here in Moscow with one more note on that pilot who's now under so much scrutiny for having made that hard landing with so much extra fuel on board. He has been quoted by local media as saying he did follow procedure. Dan Harris, ABC News, Moscow.
Thank you, Dan. Yeah, a very devastating story. Guys, we're moving on to Capitol Hill, where tensions are escalating. House Democrats are now saying they will hold Attorney General Barr in contempt of Congress for refusing to produce the full unredacted Mueller report. So I want to bring in Ben Siegel, who's on the Hill. Bill, thanks for joining us. What are the latest developments?
Well, Kimberly, Attorney General Bill Barr has sort of emerged as a bit of a punching bag for Democrats up here who are frustrated after the Mueller report. Some talk of impeaching the president. They're really focusing in on the Attorney General over access to that report. We know that Mueller's team and the Justice Department released a report that was redacted. Portions of it were marks were not made clear to the public, and Democrats want access to the full report. They say it's important that they know everything that the special counsel found to help inform their investigations and any possible legislation they need to do moving forward. Of course, the Attorney General has pushed back on that. He's only given access to the report to a small number of top congressional leaders, not the full membership of the Judiciary Committee. So Democrats are going to move forward with this contempt to essentially get on the record as reprimanding the Attorney General and eventually down the road force this battle into the courts to maybe, as they hope, get a judge to force the Justice Department to perhaps turn some of this over.
Yeah, so definitely an ongoing fight, but it's not the only one going on. What about the president's tax returns? That's also big news.
That's a similar situation, this tug-of-war between Democrats on the Hill and the administration. Just last night, the Treasury Secretary, Steve Mnuchin, said he would not comply with Democrats' request for 6 years of the president's returns. Of the administration arguing that they do not serve a legislative purpose. That's not what Democrats say, and they have a couple of options ahead of them. They could go to court to try to make a judge force Mnuchin to turn those over under a very obscure part of the tax code that they use to make the request, or they could issue a subpoena themselves and, again, have this wind up in the courts. But the bottom line here is that Democrats on several fronts are tangling with this administration, and this can all lead to the court system in Washington, and we might not have a resolution for many years.
All right, Ben Siegel, thank you so much. I want to continue this, what's going on there with Karen Travers at the White House. Karen, I want to talk to you about Don McGann, because the White House just instructed him not to comply to the congressional subpoena. So what's going on there?
Yeah, this was a subpoena, Kimberly, that the House Judiciary Committee issued last month for the former White House counsel Don McGann. Today is the deadline for McGann to turn over documents related to the Mueller investigation. They've also set a May 21st deadline. They want to get him up to Capitol Hill and testify in person. Today, though, the White House, through Sarah Sanders, the press secretary, says they are not going to, they're going to tell McGann to not comply with that subpoena request to get documents will not happen. And it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out, Kimberly, because, of course, there are questions about whether or not the administration can try and claim executive privilege on testimony that McGann has already given to the special counsel's team under oath. All of this centers around what McGann told to Robert Mueller and his team, that in 2017, the president asked McGann repeatedly to fire the special counsel. McGann told the special counsel's team that he refused to do that and at one point even threatened to resign. The president insists that did not happen. But remember, McGann said this under oath. The president has said this on Twitter. Democrats say that leaves a lot of questions still unanswered.
Yeah, and just for clarification, the White House is allowed to instruct someone not to do this.
That's what they say. They're going to say that he should not comply with the subpoena request. Certainly, the Democrats are going to take issue with this, and then we'll see how this legal process plays out. But legal experts say this is going to be an interesting case of whether or not the administration can say this can't move forward, depending on how narrow or broad they approach this, given that McGann was already given the approval to cooperate last year and the year before that with the special counsel's team.
Yeah, and I also want to ask you about something you said was coming up on your radio calls today, which is the tariff war going on with China. So what's happening there?
The president over the weekend, Kimberly, threatened to raise tariffs by the end of the week on $200 billion of Chinese products, taking those tariffs from 10% to 25%. This is a threat he has made before. So the question is this just a threat to jumpstart negotiations that the president says we're taking too slowly, that they're not progressing as quickly as he'd like to see it? There's a Chinese delegation coming to Washington this week to sit down for another round of talks with the Treasury Secretary and the U.S. trade rep. But those two senior officials said yesterday these tariff hikes will go into effect at the end of the week. Kimberly, it's Tuesday. We'll see how this plays out by Friday. That's a long ways away with some meetings to take place.
All right, Karen, we will see how this all plays out. Thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate that. Guys, a suspect was arrested last night in the murder of an on-duty police officer in Mississippi. He was gunned down in front of his police station. So I want to go to Steve Osunsami, who's in Atlanta, with more details. Steve?
Kimberly, Biloxi police have arrested 19-year-old Darian Atkinson. He is the suspect in the shooting of a police officer Sunday night right outside the Biloxi police headquarters. Officer Robert McKeithen was gunned down in the parking lot. He was shot multiple times. On surveillance video, you see a young man in a red hat walk into the police station. Police say that is their suspect who walked into the police station before the shooting happened. They're not sure if the attack was random or targeted, but to give you some idea of this suspect's state of mind, as he was brought into that same police station, taken into custody last night, he had a grin on his face and mumbled some words. He was spotted by a Biloxi police officer who was going home from work last night, spotted in another city north of Biloxi. That city made the arrest. He was brought back, of course, to that police officer. He will be charged with murder and murdering of a police officer. This officer who died was a 24-year veteran of the force. He also won a Medal of Valor for helping rescue 4 children during Katrina. He was an Air Force veteran who loved working the night shift, according to his friends, and was set to retire this year. Police say they are doing everything they can now to support his family. Kimberly.
Yes, Steve, that's a sad story. Thank you for the updates. Guys, we've been keeping you updated on the measles outbreak, and it's one of those situations where if you're not affected by it, you may have trouble believing that it's actually happening, but it is. There's 60 new cases that were reported just in the last week. So I want to go to Adrian Bankert in Los Angeles with more. Adrian?
Hey, Kimberly, we're here in Los Angeles at the Grove, and this is just one of several locations where highly contagious measles patients were out and about with shoppers, with those who were dining, and health officials are very concerned that there are other folks who might have contracted the illness. That is why they continue to call this measles outbreak a cause for concern, a cause for alarm, especially for the parents of young children. We talk to moms who have children under the age of 6 months old who are too young to be vaccinated. And while they say they try to take certain precautions, there's no way with their busy schedules and other children that they can remain in isolation while they have a child who is too young to be vaccinated and get the measles vaccine. Now, we do know this. If you are somebody who is traveling internationally, this is of heightened concern because there are other countries where measles is very common, especially during this time of year. So you want to check with the country that you're traveling to, and you want to see if they're under a measles outbreak as well, and consider whether or not you should be taking your young children under the age of 5 to that country and traveling internationally. But again, this is part of the nationwide outbreak, over 700 cases in 23 states. Pennsylvania now added to that list. There are 8 confirmed cases of the measles right here in Los Angeles County, according to the Department of Public Health. The CDC director saying that it is wise for you to consider getting your babies vaccinated early. That's before they turn 1 year old, between the ages of 6 and 12 months. I'm Adrian Bankert in Los Angeles, and you're watching ABC News Live.
All right, Adrian, thank you so much. Pretty terrifying there that those cases are rising. Guys, so we're going to take a look at the weather across the country, and we have Ginger Z with the update. Ginger?
Kimberly, thank you. More severe storms, at least 111 severe storm reports just in the last 24 hours. And we're just getting going because there's a multi-day event we're going to be watching here. So see that? That's a tornado illuminated by lightning there in the night sky. Lewis, Kansas. It was just taken by Tony Laubeck. That's actually a storm chaser and one of the meteorologists that I've chased with before. He's from Cake TV, our affiliate there in Wichita. But bringing you through wasn't just in Kansas, but Lyman, Colorado had hail covering the ground. And today, we won't just see hail. We won't just see the possibility of tornadoes, but probably most likely it would be a 70-mile-per-hour plus wind, and it's that dry line, that tan line with the bubbles on it. That's where we're going to see the instigation of the storm. So you have really dry air behind it and the moist air ahead. We look at dew points, and a big division in dew point is what we're looking at for this afternoon and evening. And so it's the panhandle of Texas. If you're in Big Spring, Texas, or Amarillo, Lubbock, anywhere up through, say, Woodward, Oklahoma, that's kind of the enhanced to moderate risk. Don't let moderate throw you off. That word means that's the second highest that we have as far as categories go. Move then to what's happening east, because that cold front's going to slide east. And so Wednesday, Kansas City to Joplin, down to Dallas-Fort Worth, if the atmosphere can get itself going, has the possibility of seeing not just tornadoes, but of course more wind and hail. And then eventually Memphis and Jackson on Thursday. So it's a severe storms outbreak that we'll be watching this week. And it's going to come with a lot of rain, too, which wouldn't be good for anywhere that's already flooding. This is St. Charles, Missouri. They're in moderate flood stage. That levee has breached. Now, that's just from spring snowmelt. And yes, some rain, but if you add rain to it, it will be a problem. And I think you'll get a little there, a lot heavier to the south. Much of Arkansas going to see some heavy rains, northern Louisiana. And between Dallas and Houston, could see up to 6 inches. All right, we want to leave you with one awesome image and just a reminder of how powerful lightning can be. This was from Florida, separate system, but still, just a reminder of how much it can, how close it can get to you, and how being even near the windows, not a great thing. Kimberly.
Ginger, thank you so much. That was a little scary to watch there. All right, guys, do you remember Lifetime's Surviving R. Kelly documentary? It was explosive because it made new allegations and old allegations resurface against R. Kelly. And today he's back in Chicago in court after being charged with 10 counts of aggravated sexual abuse in February. So I want to go to Stephanie Wash in Chicago with more details. Stephanie, the hearing just wrapped up. What happened?
So it's been 6 weeks since R. Kelly has had to face the judge here in criminal court. His defense attorneys were in court today. They were expecting to receive discovery. The state did tender hundreds of pages of discovery. The defense will now start combing through it. Another topic that they discussed here in court today, Michael Avenatti, obviously he's facing legal troubles of his own from California to New York. Days after Avenatti was indicted on charges of his own, Kelly's defense attorney Steve Greenberg filed a motion with the court asking that all communication between prosecutors, including Cook County State's Attorney Kim Foxx and Michael Avenatti, be preserved as potential evidence to potentially show coordination leading up to this indictment of R. Kelly. So in court today, we were expecting to hear the court rule on that. Greenberg asked the state whether they would be producing that communication at this time, and their response was, I think we need to talk about this. The judge instructed Greenberg to discuss it with the state and possibly file a supplement to his motion if they are unable to come to an agreement on whether all of that communication will come out.
Yeah, and so do we know what happens next? Because it's been some time since he was in court before. Like, when's his next court date? What goes on next?
So next we will see R. Kelly back here in court next month on June 5th. So the defense will have a chance to look over the evidence that they presented by the state, and they will also obviously look into filing that supplemental motion, and we'll see if we will get some of that communication that the prosecutors were having with Avenatti, who represents at least one victim in this case and also has said publicly that he is the one that turned over one of the VHS tapes showing one of these alleged assaults of an underage female.
All right, Stephanie, thank you so much. And I think Lifetime actually said that they're going to be releasing a follow-up to that first documentary. All right, guys, even if you completely tuned out all of the news yesterday, then somebody had to have told you about royal baby Sussex being born. It was a healthy baby boy, born to probably the coolest parents in the world. Lots of pomp and circumstance, the royal announcement, the band playing at the changing of the guard, and lots of celebrity messages of love poured in after the news. There was a Michelle Obama tweet. She said, "Congratulations, Meghan and Harry. Barack and I are so thrilled for both of you and can't wait to meet him. Hashtag royal baby." And the great thing is she will actually get a chance to meet this baby, unlike the rest of us. There was also a tweet from Ellen DeGeneres, if we have that. Do we have that tweet? Because it was hilarious. She said, "Congratulations, Meghan Markle and Prince Harry. The baby is 7th in line for the throne," which is crazy because right now I'm 7th in line for the key-making kiosk at my grocery store. Gotta love Ellen. All right, guys, so I want to go to Will Reeve, who has been on Royal Baby Watch, living his best life in Windsor for quite some time, and he has the updates. Will?
Hey there, Kimberly. A buzzy day yesterday in Windsor with the arrival of this baby boy, 7 pounds, 3 ounces. Early in the morning, Prince Harry coming out in front of cameras to announce that both mother and child are healthy. Everyone in the streets were very excited, but today, back to normal mostly, so we figured why not do something quintessentially British and have a nice little float down the River Thames. Just over my shoulder is Windsor Castle. The Queen is home, the royal standard flag flying high above the castle. In the foreground, in front of the castle, preparations being made for the Royal Windsor Horse Show that happens later this week. We've got carriages that have been passing by. It feels like a lovely day in this town just 25 miles outside of central London, but it feels like the world's eyes are still on this tiny country town because of the news of this royal baby. Celebrities and dignitaries wishing the royal family well, including Michelle Obama tweeting her congratulations to her friends, Harry and Meghan. As far as the name of the baby, we don't know yet, but odds makers are taking bets on Arthur, on Spencer, which is Harry's mother's, Princess Diana's maiden name. I'm personally partial to William. I think you can imagine why, although I feel like a member of the royal family after my proximity here to them in Windsor for the past week and change. So maybe they'll give me a little nod, or at least I'll take it as a little nod if they do decide to name the baby boy William. As far as those gifts that I mentioned I was going to get for this baby boy, haven't done it yet, but Windsor has calmed down a little bit, so I can try to get into those stores. But for now, we're just sort of enjoying our time here, floating around on a lovely little boat. I've got a horse-drawn carriage trotting on by as the Royal Windsor Horse Show gets underway in a couple days, and everything's good here in Windsor. Happy and healthy baby boy. We expect to see tomorrow. That's when Harry and Meghan should show off this boy. Maybe there will be a name. If there is, we will, of course, let you know. We will go live for you because we are firmly the Windsor Bureau here, Kimberly. We are ready to go for ABC News Live at any time here in Windsor. We're having a great time. Royal baby been born. Now we're just sitting back, relaxing. Other planes are flying out. We're here, nonstop for you, Kimberly.
Will living his best life. I told you, he could not look more peaceful. Okay, camp style. Again, if you did not know what that was before last night, then you absolutely have to know now because it means exaggeration, the art of being extra, and the stars turned it up. If you watched the Met Gala last night, you saw Billy Porter, Ciara, Lady Gaga with all of those layers, and Laura Spencer from GMA, she was there on the pink carpet, so take a look.
Hanno, how do you hope camp is interpreted by your guests?
I hope they all have a lot of fun.
The bigger, the better?
Exactly, the more crazy, the better.
And what a campy night it was, starting with Lady Gaga. No one does camp like this woman. Get in there, you have to get a close up. Not one, but 4 different looks, using the pink carpet like a Broadway stage, backup dancers and all. And the night has just begun. Appropriately for the night, the costumes, a work of art, literally.
You know, sometimes you wear the art.
Yes.
Sometimes you are the art, and sometimes you're both.
You are one of a kind, a masterpiece, I dare say.
You are the kindest.
Katy Perry, arguably the most lit at the gala.
I want to swing from the chandelier. Stipulation is that you can't touch me.
No.
Because I will go down.
And our favorite funny lady, Tiffany Haddish, bringing snacks just in case.
Wait a minute. What is happening inside your bag? Stop hating on my chicken, girl. You want a piece? Yes. I cooked it myself.
I do want a piece. It's so good. Actor Billy Porter ready to take off.
I'm gonna keep these wings on all night.
You are.
It's time for fly.
The stars unafraid to push boundaries.
So this is a little easy.
Camp light?
I think it's camp medium for Regina, but it worked out.
No, it's kind of scary because you're like, how over the top are they gonna take it? You don't want to be like the boring belle at the ball.
Look, he kind of had this vision of me being this California girl stepping out of the ocean onto the red carpet at the Met.
Rami Malek taking a little inspiration from his most recent role as Freddie Mercury. I think you know camp now pretty well after your last role.
Yeah, I've gotten pretty good at understanding what that's like.
And the couple, J-Rod, making a 70s statement.
I think it's just the glamour of the 70s. For me, that was a very, like, the on-stage personas like Tina Turner and Cher and everybody like that. You know, there's so many of my inspirations, Diana Ross, and so we kind of went with this for Versace's look this year.
It was amazing. I think everyone should just wear camp style to work tomorrow and see how that goes. All right, my friends, thanks so much for joining us. If you're around, you can stick around for the briefing room at 3:30 p.m. and then you can check us out for World News Prime at 8 p.m. And if you want to stay updated on all of these headlines, you can go to abcnews.com or download the app. I'm Kimberly Brooks, and I will, of course, see you tomorrow.